What's up? Welcome to the Fed Up Podcast. I'm Ryan here with Jordan again. How you doing, man?
So fantastic. Thank you for asking.
Oh yeah, dude. These early ones they're good, but on a Sunday, getting up at 7 to get out here is not an easy thing all the time.
No.
So today, we're gonna jump in and talk about work. Kind of a good one to jump into after talking about identity is the work that we do, the stuff that we're made to do, and how so many of us really just hate what we do. The world is full of people that just absolutely hate what they do and dream about something that might be pleasurable to do for a living. So, Jordan, let's talk about work, man. So where does it start? Let's start with there. Let's start with the problem. Everybody seems like they hate their job, especially, we work in construction with some pretty miserable dudes doing some really hard work and have some really crummy attitudes.
Yeah.
So, what does life look like when you hate your job? What do you do to solve that problem? Is the problem with you? Is the problem with your job? Let's begin there and kind of trickle into a deeper idea of what work is.
Well, first and foremost, the very regrettable part of being honest about where any problem lies. If you're willing and have the courage to be honest about anything and there's a problem in your life, it's your fault to a great degree.
Yeah.
There's obviously things in our life that seep into it that seem cancerous, and there's a lot of things in our fault that maybe aren't our fault, but I think there's a synchronicity and a connectedness to everything. So I think you could trace it to you being partially responsible for all things horrific in your life.
Yeah.
But a big part of why this is important to piggyback off of identity is we don't know how to detach what we do from who we are. And we think there is a inseparable, like Velcroed state of being within that. And we were just talking about earlier is, unfortunately, like post World War I, World War II, like commercialized America, our minds are cultivated to be graded from day one, to then enter into a society and say, be the best worker bee, go get the most honey, find the Mrs. Bee with the biggest gadunk, and like have a trophy honey bee at home in the hive, and show her how big your stinger is, and you know what I mean. Anyways, I think the issue with identity and our work is we never take time to work on the idea that we are always responsible from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed. No one is making us do the things we do, unless you're in, obviously, some horrific third world regime, dictatorship, of you don't have a choice. You're going to do this, like a very concentration camp-esque type of political system. Like in America specifically, if you don't like your life, it's your fault. You're making decisions, especially related to work. Mm-hmm. You're choosing to work in that area. No one's making you go to that job. And I think the hardest thing is and obviously we're going to explore this, is how much power do I have to change my compass to sail to a different part of the sea that isn't suffocating and drowning, Yeah. So I'm very black and white about this. And to the degree I was willing to take ownership of my life is my fault, especially related to my work, because I had a massive career change. Used to be a chef, and now my work, my occupation, quote unquote, is I'm a carpenter. So, and when I go to work, I feel less than zero connection to, like, this is my identity. And that is a gift. And that took a long time to go do a occupation and say, this has nothing to do with who I am. I'm here to receive something to sustain the life that I choose to have at this point in my life. So I think the problem always starts with me. You look in the mirror, your work, you don't like it, look in the mirror, say, your fault. So where to go from there? Obviously, I want to turn it back to you. Like, do you think similarly, like, does the problem truly lie if someone has like the snooze button pushed, like their fingerprint is like welded into that snooze button? Like, I hate the idea that I'm going to wake up and go do this because I don't know how to not do this thing, and I don't have the courage to navigate waters that are more of my passion intrinsically, but I have to go do this 9 to 5 because I feel I'm in a prison. I don't know how to get out.
Man. Well, I think, yeah, dude, a lot of what you just said was so much to unpack there. It was really good. But
Mostly the bees.
But I think, yeah, a lot of jobs can be prisons. And I do think it is, I mean, I guess there is a lot of responsibility on our part if we go to a job that we hate, because there's some part of us that has accepted that this is as good as it gets, or I have to do this, or whatever. And it's hard, man, because I guess if you can have a job and make money, and there's some part of you that has to learn to be at least content and grateful for the opportunities you get in life, even if they are really difficult and hard, or even soul killing, you know? I could think of people that have had jobs that are just, they're soul killing, you know, where you have to like call someone working for an HOA and tell them like, hey man, your trash bins are out. You need to put them away or I'm going to fine you. Like, you know, there's not much you're going to get in life from doing that job. I mean, they are soul killing, but I guess when I look at it and I think, yeah, I would hate that job, right? But I guess I would use that as a fuel to like, listen, I'm not going to do this job.
That's so
like,
important what you're saying.
You know what I mean? I'm grateful that I have a job. I'm getting paid, even though it's really difficult for me to do this. But I'm going to try to change my framework because I don't want this job to define me. I don't want to go and hate my job every single day. You know, and it may suck. Like, I may hate telling someone something so trivial that's going to ruin their day. They're going to cuss at me on the phone or whatever, right? And yeah, there's just nothing pleasant about that job, but there's a place you could get to where at least you could be content enough where, like, I accept that this is my job for this moment. I'm content with that, but I'm also not going to just lay down and accept this, because it, you know, I've been reading this book by Ernest Becker, and I think it really hits on a good point where it talks about like kind of heroism inbred in our culture, where like basically we all want to be the superheroes of our own life,
100%.
right? We all want to be Iron Man. We all want to be Batman. You know, we all want to have, we have this ingrained thing. So when you go do a job and you call people like that, and it just robs you of that at this just deep level every day, like, this is what I'm doing on the planet for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. It's just like, it's the opposite of that. It's just, it's showing that you're not the superhero, and you have that like push in your face all the time.
Yeah.
So the goal with finding something is to where you can at least have a little bit of that, to realize like you're wired to be the superhero of your life. And that's where we talked about identity last time, where you just made the point. It's like, my work doesn't define me, right? It's not like I'm working at a call center. I tell people, hey man, I'll call you and bust your chops for not bringing your trash bins in. That's not me. That's what I'm doing at this stage of my life.
Yeah.
And the difference is I'm going to look at it and be like, I'm going to learn everything I need to know from doing this job, so that when I do my next job, I'm even better at it. I'm like, there's lessons in every single job.
Yeah.
And to bring it back to me, where when I started in construction working at it, was just a really difficult environment for me. I was so insecure. Like, I could barely do anything without questioning myself to death. You know, I've told you stories of like picking up a rotohammer, getting ready to drill into concrete, and I just literally couldn't pull the trigger because I had zero confidence in what I was doing, and the fact that I didn't think it was right, and I didn't trust myself. So I would have to go like get confirmation from my father.
It's terrifying.
And just like I couldn't do, because I realized how much of a big deal if I screwed it up, right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, the difference was I hated my job. Like, I would go to work and my attitude would suck. I'm like, why am I here? This is awful. I don't want to do this. This is so anti-me, right?
Yeah.
And it was horrible. Like, when you have that environment and you create that, it's just absolutely horrible, because you get depressed. You are full of stress and anxiety when you're there. and it just creates this horrible environment for you to be in. And of course, you're not going to thrive in that kind of environment. You are going to survive. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah.
So after a while of battling with it and thinking, oh, this isn't my calling, I'm going to go find my vocation, this is obviously not it, or blah, 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 right? Eventually, I was able to come to this place where I was thankful for what I was doing, and there was opportunities there, as much as it was difficult. Because for me, I can't imagine too many more difficult job for me. Like there's anything on the planet that would be more difficult for me at that stage of my life. To have to work with family, which was really difficult for me at the time, and to do the kind of work that is physically grueling, stressful, like difficult work, right? Where after I was able to kind of come to some sort of acceptance,
Yeah.
you know, then it changed. Because what happened was this place that I was so far from being able to be comfortable in, and I was so uncomfortable, it was the best place that I can learn these lessons in life that I needed to learn, where I had to just grind it out. And it was painful and awful and difficult, but it was something where, like, there was no place that I can think of that I could have grown like I could have grown once I turned around and accepted it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So it's not a matter of just laying down and just hitting the snooze button like you're talking about. It's turning it and saying, like, what lessons am I supposed to learn at this stage?
Yeah.
That's all this is for me. This is a stage. This doesn't define me like you're talking about. But there are key lessons here when you hate your job and your soul's saying, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, there's something not jiving here. That's all your soul's trying to tell you. Like, figure that out. And for me, figuring that out was being like, you know, quit the shit attitude.
Yeah.
And accept where you're at, learn to be thankful for it, and take the tremendous lessons that are in front of you that I can look back now and I am so thankful for. I wouldn't change anything about it, even as awful as it was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm sure you know that from transitioning, like you've had to transition, all the battles that come from it. So I'm just saying that, like, when it comes to hating your job, I think when you hate your job, it's because your expectations of your job are completely jacked.
Yeah.
So it's like, turn around and reanalyze what's going on there. Search your soul. Look at why does your job provoke this thing in you, and really look at it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the most important part you hit on is recognizing that the work in and of itself changed less than zero amount, but you can go from doing the same exact work and altering the lens in which you look at it through, and all of a sudden all these things that you begrudgingly showed up to every day with just sour, bitter resentment and hate, and secretly thinking about how to just rid the world of this industry, period, then transfer to, well, what am I getting, what intangibles am I getting out of this? All of these challenges, you know, and I actually say this, you know, I'm sorry to everyone I've ever worked with, but my radical shift, you know, mirroring your perspective shift, was I started saying in a most very sincere, sarcastic way, in a very fake it till you make it way, like, anytime there was some aspect of something I hated at work, whether it was in the new, you know, construction field, and it's especially hilarious now being around blue collar dudes, and I've been in a very yin and yang environment of work, just with my hands, 10 years just around artists and egos, and there's not a more, like, identity driven, soul sucking industry because of art and the culinary world being so glamorized as, like, if you are this thing who makes it to this level, then because of this occupation, your identity is so much more significant. And you're on the front lines of that and just posturing and saying, you know, referencing the bee stinger, how big is yours? I don't know. Mine stings a little better. You know, it's like, I got 2 stingers, you know what I mean? It's like, and then you go to, like, the most, like, humble work that's just sweat equity invested every day, and a bunch of dudes and dudettes who are just trying to build shit for the America, and there's no art, there's no identity in that, but there is massive identity in that power struggle of egos of, like, you know, who can do more good or with like these welds, or you know what I mean? All these stupid barbaric grade school comparisons that don't escape any industry. But my massive transition shift with my ability to basically be in any scenario, whether it's this artistic, like very diva-y world, or the most like 12 pounds of dip in your lip, you know, environment, literally. It's the same principle stands where people absolutely believe what they're doing that day is who they are.
Yeah.
And with the challenges in both scenarios, I started saying, you know, when things got really shitty really quick, I was like, what a great opportunity. What an incredible opportunity. And everyone always looks at me like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, no, seriously, think about it. If this horrible thing that's happening right now wasn't happening, we wouldn't be able to like bond and connect over this and like learn together, kumbaya some shit. And then they're like, are you being serious? And I'm like, no, but yes, you know, because I mean, that's the thing is like, if everything was perfect all the time, artificial intelligence would have already taken over the world and you and I would have already been plugged into the matrix, which might be happening right now. We don't know that. But the point of the frailty of all of our work environments and all the shit going on is this is what makes us human, is the imperfections going on around us. And it's so rad when you look at these things as whether it's intrinsically, I have a problem that I'm dealing with inside with my perspective of these things, or externally, I'm dealing with other humans in a horrible situation. If you can look at this thing as there is 100% gold at the end of this rainbow, and this rainbow it has no color, it's black with shards of glass, and I have to like belly crawl across it. Like, it's not a pretty thing. That's what it feels like to work through things. But having that perspective shift, like you're saying, that's the most important thing, is realizing no matter where you're at, it doesn't have to be where you're going. And taking a deep breath of that potential freedom of whether you do stay in this job or you do evolve into another path. It's like you can always choose, and we've talked about this before, Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, and being in Auschwitz, he's like, at the core level of a human being, no matter how fucked your situation is, if you're in a concentration camp, you can survive if you choose to have a perspective that is not a victim of the circumstance, but what can I do to inject hope? And just positivity. Not to say that like there's hope and positivity in Auschwitz. I'm not saying that. But there is hope and positivity that Auschwitz might end at some point. And I might get to go see my family member I parted ways with on a train. You know what I mean? And that relentlessness to keep moving forward and not give up. Because that is the death of a soul within corporate America specifically. Is there is no hope, there is no change, like there's no meaning in it. So I think a real dilemma is, how do I find meaning in my work that it isn't my identity? How do I have it mean something? How do I not waste my time? You know, there's this like ironic dilemma of, we don't all have the luxury of getting to do what we want to do every day. Like my innate impulse and desire to be a chef and be an artistic expresser of who I am, like that shit backfired. Because I realized if I want to do what I want to do at the level I want to do it, it's going to be for the top 1% of the top 1% of humanity. And they're going to helicopter in, eat lunch, and they're not going to give a fuck about my hippie journey with like trying to like have the synchronicity with different colors of different palettes of different mushrooms and shit. And like, they're going to be like, yeah, like I had 2 of these last night when I was bored and I was drunk and I don't even care. So it's really hard, man, but I think you nailed it on the head. And I think you need to explore more verbally. How did you recognize the need for a perspective shift? And how did you go from not only being competent in the field where you were terrified to pull a trigger on a rotohammer, like I think you could like technically be crowned like king of the rotohammer, like of Portland, like ironworkers, like with the magicianry you are as an ironworker now. Like it's so amazing to see, because of your perspective shift over X amount of years, like you're the HBIC of ironworking, you know? Like that's amazing. So I think you have something encoded into who you are intrinsically that you implemented that you need to articulate.
Well, I'll expand on it a little bit more, but the thing that's crazy, right, is like to look at a shift like that. And perspective's everything, but perspective doesn't come easy when you're in misery and you're just wanting the pain to stop,
Yeah.
right? I mean, especially when it comes to your job, because your job you're kind of shackled to in a lot of ways. Because the way our culture is like, hey man, get this job. As long as you're cool with it, get some debt, buy a house, mortgage, whatever, right? You were chained to this sucker. You can't just quit and move on.
Yeah.
Right? You have bills to pay.
Yeah.
You're locked in. There's a lot that it takes for you just to be like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? Sell my house, I do whatever because I can't afford it, right? So when you're chained to something, and the thing that you're chained to is tearing you apart, it's miserable.
Yeah.
So it's to try and find perspective in that is insanely difficult.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you are a prisoner in a sense. So a way of even getting close to finding any sort of perspective is to get out of those shackles, to realize you're not really shackled to it. So for me, it came in a weird way where like, yeah, I was shackled to it, and I just got to a point where I basically was just done, and it was just more of a reaction, where it came out of my immaturity in the sense that like I just couldn't do it anymore. Like I was ready to snap, and it was just like a breaking point, right? And it doesn't have to get to that point, but for me it did. And where occupation was such a miserable thing that vocation was the savior. So for me, it was because I always wanted to teach and taught at different things. It was going to seminary. That was the savior, right? It was what was going to get me out of this painful situation that I was shackled to. And so going through the process of not working in construction anymore, and getting rid of all these like my house and everything else that I had, and transitioning to the situation where I was like, oh, this is going to be so much more life-giving, right? And then that all blows apart. The vocation wasn't the savior. It was just something that I was looking at it to be a savior for me. And then having to come full circle and come back and work in construction again was something that, I don't know, it's just crazy how it works out that way. And in coming back, my attitude was still very much the same. But it was something where like I was different because of what happened in me. And what happened in me is that identity shift happened where, like you said in the beginning, you are not your work. But for me, it was very much I was my work, right? And so what happened was that identity crisis happened. What happened from seminary, and what it did was like shake the foundations up for me. Who am I? And all those questions kept pushing, and all these different, thoughts about who I was and what I wanted to do, and all, and it's just, why am I so stressed out by this? And like all these things were just like flooding. So what it did was it forced a lot of things out. Where like I remember talking to one of my friends in construction and just being honest with him about it. And he was just so blunt. He was like, dude, listen, do you ever think about how bad your attitude is at work?
Wow.
And I was like, I never really thought about it like that. And he's like, yeah, dude, I hate to break it to you, but your attitude sucks.
Wow.
And if you have that attitude, you're never going to get anything out of this.
What a gift.
It was. But like, and I was just like kind of sitting there like shocked. But like the difference was I could hear that now, right? I was at a place where the soil was fertile, and he just drove that seed in, right? And I was like, dang, okay, you're right. And so to me, realizing how poor my attitude was and how I was just resentful, and so many bad emotions were just tied to work, that it forced me to really start sorting that stuff out. And the difference was so I was able to progress after I started doing that, where I was like, okay, so why am I so insecure here? Why do I believe this? And like so much had to be worked through, especially in construction with like what you're doing, because when you're doing steel, right, and you're welding something and you're building a building, and you put all the stuff in and weld it together, and you have to walk away from it knowing, one, it's in the right spot, that it's safe, no one's going to die by the structure you just built, and there's a lot tied to it. So for me, as this really immature kid that was working, I was terrified of all those. Like, I didn't want to be responsible for anything. I didn't want to be responsible for putting anything there, or someone's life being, on this balcony that I just built or whatever, right? So it forced me to ask myself why and go down that road, and to really figuring out and getting to the root of all these insecurities, which was awesome. You want to talk about, like, you could go to therapy for years and years and never have that experience.
Yep.
I was able to get it from work because my attitude shifted.
Yep.
And it only came from this identity crisis that ended up happening, right?
Yep.
Which I'm thankful for now, but that's the difference. The difference was my identity shifted, where the thing I was shackled to that was bringing so much pain in my life, like, I realized wasn't what I thought it was. It could be this tremendous teacher that, if I actually looked at it that way and was able to say, like, listen, this doesn't define me. I've created some separation from it. I'm not just an iron worker or anything else, right? And so I can look at it now as like this really difficult thing, right, that can teach me a lot. It's almost like when you go and you're working out and you're trying to, like, get your body in shape, and your body's constantly telling you, like, dude, you got weak hamstrings, man. You got to figure that out.
I know,
right?
I'm working on it.
Yeah, but that's what the work situation was. Once I was able to see it that way, it was showing me all these things about myself that I had no idea, because all I was focused on, this causes pain, right? And instead, it was able to be this tremendous teacher, like, dude, you don't realize your insecurity here, or, why you're so stressed out about this, because it came full circle, and I was just like, man, this is one of the best methods in my life that could teach me the most about myself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a long-winded answer, but it's just something where it's just like, the key difference when you're doing something you hate is you can flip it, and you can look at it and be like, this thing could teach me something that could change my life forever.
Yeah.
And that's the thought that I don't feel like many of us have, because all we're looking at is that shackle, and we're like, I just don't want to be chained to this no more. And instead of doing that, you go, okay, I'm chained to this right now, and it feels that way, but maybe it's not that way.
Yeah.
I can learn something from this, and realizing that shackle isn't real.
Yeah.
You can get out of it whenever you want to. The difference is there's a lesson here, and if I can accept it, then there is not many things on the planet that can teach you stuff about yourself than when you feel that way, and you could turn it around like that. So I don't know.
Well, you, I think, unintentionally just softball home run slammed the next point in the sequence of thoughts about how to build the bridge to transitioning from being a victim, and, as your coworker so lovingly and tactfully said, you need to fucking wake up.
Yeah.
Your soul is rotten in your perspective of what you do. The most important thing to understand, and you learn this the hard way, but the most important way, which is experientially, you realize that the escapism antidote you thought was going to release you from the shackles, you thought by unshackling yourself from the perceived issue that was your ironworking, like my hate and distaste for this job. The only logical solution is to, if I go down a different path, then my soul will be free. I'm going to go, mate and crossbreed with a bunch of doves and just sail off into the wind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's we have that carrot dangle mentality. The grass is not only greener on the other side, like it is the essence of freedom. And we always tell ourselves that where I am now, today, the things I struggle with are 100% able to be escaped. If right now, today, if I was in a different environment, things would be totally different.
Yeah.
And this is the most important point, from my perspective, is, and one of the hardest lessons I had to learn, is where we're at and the struggles we're dealing with occupationally. It's just a mirror of all the issues you're having are within yourself. It's not the job's fault that you are sour and bitter and rotten inside. It is not your coworker's fault that you have an inability to manage your emotions at a higher level, and going and taking the lazy route and going. And I think I respect there's aspects of being a monk I respect, but I also think, like, they're super duper weak as fuck. And because, dude, do you know how spiritual I could be if I didn't have anyone around me and if I was up in the hills?
Yeah.
Do you know how much of a cakewalk that would be?
Yeah.
Like, come back and tell me how much of a badass monk you are in your beautiful like curtains you're wearing. Like, come back and tell me, and to reintegrate back into society with the things you've learned, and try to stay sane and very monkful. So my whole point of this is there's a young man that I love to death, and I'll take a bullet for. I'm not going to name his name, but he knows who he is. Who I consider to be a little brother of mine who has had an incredible struggle with manifesting his identity and running from job to job to job, and trying to find peace of mind that is hypothetically available somewhere else. And I have told him 473,000 times, and I will continue to do so until life teaches him these little seeds that I've planted him all the time. But I'm like, bro, wherever you go, you're going to bring every single problem you have today. Every single one of them. There is not a job that is going to be a canvas for you to paint some hypothetical joy that is available outside of the job you have now. You are you.
Yeah.
There is a honeymoon phase with the new job.
Yeah.
Because you tell yourself, this is going to be more gooder. Well, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you're still you. And if you haven't worked on you, it's going to be just as not gooder as the last job. Mm-hmm. So in your level of ownership and the irony of you going away in that prodigal son-esque way, coming back to the same thing that you hated so much.
Yeah.
And you're able to say, how blessed am I to be in a first world country, make really good money, see my kids and my wife very often, have an incredibly safe, warm home. And if I want it to be a little cooler, I can push a button, I can make it cooler, and I can have access to all the food I want when I want.
Sure.
All of my fundamental needs are taken care of because of this thing I hated.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it went from hell to being not heaven by any means, but the transition happened not because of your external world, and you're such a perfect case study. The same job became a gift and a blessing because what changed was the real work, and the job was needing to go on the inside.
Yep. Yeah.
So, and I think people will always think that the problem is my environment, and I promise you, the environment that is the problem is never external, it's always internal. Always.
Yeah. That's well said, dude. But I mean, and I think the key thing is occupation and vocation are two separate things. And I think that occupation will do exactly like you're talking about. You can look at your occupation and hate everything about what you're doing. To go back to writing citations for your trash bins being out for an HOA company, like that is just a really tough job. Just a tough job. It is, and it's tough because it's not glorious. It's gritty. You have to just make some phone calls that you just don't even believe in. There's just a lot to deal with that. But if you could take that job that is just this difficult kind of soul-killing job and turn it and be like, okay, so what am I going to learn from this thing? What is it teaching about what's going on the inside of me? Why do I hate this so much, right? To at least learn those lessons. But the difference is you're not just stopping there, right? And that's to switch this to where we are made for something. We all have this unique thing about ourselves, which there is work that we need to be doing. There is soul work. There's things that all of us need to be tapped into to bring into the world. And when we're not doing those, and when our occupation is the excuse, then you're going to hate whatever your occupation is too. The point being is, whatever your vocation, your purpose, whatever you want to call it is, whatever that is, we need to be doing it. You need to find time to be crafting it. It doesn't matter if you're getting up at 4:30 in the morning, doing it before work, or you're whatever. The point being is, that's an important part of this piece too. It's getting in touch with that. Part of my journey out of there was to realize iron work is not the thing I'm here to do on this planet. It's not the thing that I feel like my purpose in life is to build steel buildings in Portland, Oregon. It's just not. There's parts of it I enjoy, there's parts of it I hate. But if I look at me, my talents and where I'm at, it's writing, doing stuff like this with you, like, and getting to do the spiritual work that I feel really inclined to talk about and write about and all that, right? Where I have to be tapped into that too. So like part of what I do is get up at 4:30 in the morning. I write before I go to work, right? That's what I try to do every day before work, because it's a part where I realize this is part of who I am and the work I need to be doing. So I create that time, which is so important, because so, like you said, so many of us are never going to have the occupation become the vocation, and we're always going to resent it for that. And maybe one day it could transition, right? But the point being is, just because you're stuck in something right now doesn't mean you stop. Like, you have to be doing your work. And it goes back to the book you gave me, you know, the War of Art, where it's so brilliantly put that we need to be doing that stuff. And if we don't, it is soul killing. It's part of going back to the hero part. We're like, if you look at it, we're like, we are the superheroes of our own lives. Like, we need to be doing our superpower. If we're neglecting that, you know, if you're Clark Kent just being Clark Kent all the time and not being Superman, then you're going to feel pretty crummy.
Yeah.
So the point being is, yeah, you know, that there is a time where you have to just grind it out in your occupation. But the goal is to never stop searching for what makes you, to do those things. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because that's the stuff that brings life into you, to other people, and that's what we need in this world. We don't need more people that are just hating their lives, stuck in their jobs. Like, how many awesome scientists have we missed because they never took a chance on themselves? Or writers, or artists. You know, it's the saddest story out there to think of how many people never tapped into that potential, to their superpower, that have just accepted, oh man, my life sucks. I'm in this shitty job. I'm just gonna climb up the corporate ladder, you know, and take vacations every once in a while. That'll be my serenity. But that's like, no, man, that's not what's gonna help change things and make things better. We need you. We need your talents. We need you to come alive to help change things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just the part that you want other people to like get in themselves. It's like, yeah, if you hate your job and you're not doing it, find what makes you. Pursue that. Yeah. But also look at the lessons you need to learn from your job. That's the difference. But there is a difference: occupation, vocation. Vocation is something we need to be doing. Yep. We have to be doing. And the resistance piece of it is heavy. It's heavy. And just to acknowledge that that's the way life is, you know? And so for me, yeah, it's great now because I feel tapped into both of them. And I know we both do. We get to sit here and kind of do the stuff that actually we feel passionate about doing. Yeah. I mean, right?
Well, I think you and I have an eerily similar path with navigating where to distribute our energy in terms of identity and occupation and, you know, occupation, vocation. Is there a difference? Should they be the one and the same at the same time? Do you have to find your vocation, and occupation has to be the same thing every day? And I can attest to the almost inevitable soul suck of making your vocation your occupation, because here's what happens when you inject your passion and your vocation heartbeat, there is a fingerprint-esque-ness to your soul. There's only going to be one of you and me and everyone else, and there is something inside of us that could be expressed that is so unique and beautiful. And the danger by following that breadcrumb trail in your soul of, this is what I'm passionate about, this is what brings me joy to do every day. If you let that thing go down the path of occupation and needing it to be tied to your sustained quality of life, mm-hmm. It's so dangerous, because all of a sudden the thing that became your passion becomes something daily reminding you how difficult it is to just on a baseline level get through the day, pay your bills, and the cancerous emotions you can tie to your vocation through making it your occupation, and the level of hate I had for showing up to work, knowing I had to juggle for this circus of stupidly privileged rich people. And my passion was to just create something, a moment for people to get around a table and create some culinary thing, your taste bud orgasm feeling, that I wanted to help create food, not so I would be remembered for the signature of a dish or some neurological connection to, oh my God, he made this thing that my grandma made before she died in this biscuits and gravy recipe. Like, it make just this grown man sobbing, eating something I made. I don't want that. I wanted to facilitate moments that were I woke your senses up through food, and the food is such a powerful medium with all your senses, to where you guys were connecting as human beings, and this food helped enhance that moment for you. But I had almost zero of those moments, and the resentment I had towards, don't you guys see how special this thing is that I made? And like, wanting my art and my expression of who I am, my vocationalness in my soul to be expressed, tying it to my paycheck, tying it to the stresses of my mortgage, it creates such chaos. And the beauty and the level of getting so fucking exhausted, or being so fucking exhausted, getting the cancer diagnosis, and getting the beauty of death as a teacher and a cultivator of how to navigate my compass and say, where should my vocational energy go? Where should my occupational energy go? What is an occupation fundamentally? It's a means to an end. You want a specific quality of life for the things and people you're responsible to take care of? Go find a thing that does that and takes the least amount of energy, so that specifically you can have that gift, that quality of time, that thing that is not going to vacuum your soul away. And you can start distributing, like you said, waking up at 4:30 in the morning, or after the kids go to bed, the spouses go to bed, 2 hours every night. There's something inside of me, my fingerprint, my vocational energy that I need to express and I'm passionate about, whatever it is. It is your time to express that and give that and cultivate that. And like a guy both you and I enjoy is Gary Vee, and he talks about, from a very like commercialized American, like, you're not serious about what your passion is until you are grinding when no one else is awake.
That's right.
If it is all a pipe dream. It is all a thing that sounds lovely. If you hate your job, quote unquote, you don't hate it. You absolutely don't hate it if you're not spending the time with your vocation, energy being expended 2 hours before the rest of the world is awake and 2 hours after the world goes to bed. If you're so serious about it and you're not spending the time, you need to start getting honest about where do you distribute your time, the quality of that time invested in the vocational energy. And the sooner you get honest about that and looking in the mirror and saying, the reason my life sucks the biggest bee stinger, and the reason why I have such a level of self-loathing, is because I haven't taken ownership of the fact that I am not exerting the necessary energy and discipline into focusing on the thing that makes me alive. And I am perpetually a victim of the job and the occupation that I have, and be like, bro, like, fuck the man. It's like, they're the reason I'm not like manifesting the world that I want. It's like, no. You could set your alarm a little bit earlier. Yeah. You could start working on what you're passionate about, what makes you and your heartbeat and your soul, that signature DNA code that no one else has, that you have, that you feel like you want to express. If you want to be a writer, if you want to paint, if you want to whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is you're not serious about becoming something vocationally if you're not sacrificing where you're at today to start to incorporate that where you're at.
I think that's well said, dude. It really brings me. I wasn't sure I was going to read this quote, but after what you just
do
said,
it.
Read it. So, part of really what Jordan's talking about, if you haven't read the War of Art yet by Stephen Pressfield, it's an amazing book that really hits home about finding your art and dealing with this thing called resistance. But there's a quote I wanted to read, and here it is. So he says, are you a born writer? Were you put on earth to be a painter, a scientist, an apostle of peace? In the end, the question can only be answered by action. Do it or don't do it. It may help to think of it this way. If you were meant to cure cancer or write a symphony or crack cold fusion and you don't do it, you only hurt yourself, even destroy yourself. You hurt your children, you hurt me, you hurt the planet. You shame the angels who watch over you, and you spite the Almighty who created you, and only you with your unique gifts for the sole purpose of nudging the human race 1 millimeter further along on its path back to God. Creative work is not a selfish act or a bid for attention on the part of the actor. It's a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you got. I had to read that after what you just said. So,
Dude.
but I think that's the shift, man. The shift is like we look at it as you know, you getting up at 4:30 or something, being selfish, or you know, just like taking time to develop my little thing. And there's so many different excuses why you don't do it. But the point being is like, no, man, you need to do it. You know, and it's that thing where like, if you're Superman and you're just being Clark Kent all the time, that's really unfortunate for everyone that needs Superman. Like, even if you have to be Clark Kent for freaking 10 hours a day, take the time at night to be Superman. That's what we need.
Yeah.
That's what's going to save this world and everything in it.
Yeah.
And it's hard though, okay? Because there's so many of us that just don't know what that thing is, right? Like, it's clear if you feel like Einstein, you're just like, dude, I see numbers, I can freaking figure everything out as soon as I look at them, right? Some people's path is clear. Or I'm Kobe, man, I got these skills, I've just been draining buckets since I was 5 years old, right? Or whatever it is. Like, some people's thing is just right there, and other people's, it's just like you have to keep carving. You know, it's like figuring out, okay, this feels like me, this doesn't feel like me.
Such an important point.
And it's something so hard to do. But the point being is, even if it's difficult, you still got to be doing it. You got to be taking that time. Don't be scared to figure it out. Sit alone, meditate, journal, pursue that. Because the point being is, like Stephen Pressfield says so brilliantly in his book, it's like we need that. And if you don't do that, you're denying yourself something that could, like, it could destroy you. Like, everything you hate about your job, and that's the most, I think, profound point about what he makes, is like, if you look at your job and you hate it so much, it's just reflective of what's going on in you. Like you said, I mean, it's something where it's like, you know in your soul this is not what you're supposed to do. And the difference is you're accepting it and you're just going to work, hate it every day. You could blame your job for all your problems, but the point being is it's because you're not doing that. You're not pursuing that. You know in your soul you're not pursuing that. You just want to hate your job because it's easy to do. It's easy to hate the job where you're calling people like I'm talking about. But the point being is, once we understand the importance of what he's talking about right there, everything changes. Because you realize it is not an option to not pursue it. It's not. And the difference is we treat it as like it is. And it's just like, no, man, it's not. Because if you looked at something like, if I'm not being me and I'm just doing it and it's going to destroy me, it would be complete, your whole approach would be so much different. But we don't, because we fall under the spell of just like, my life sucks. I'm never going to get a good job. You know, and just this toxic bullshit mind approach to this whole thing. If we're just where that ego just drives you down and just drives you, and it just keeping you thinking that you're just Clark Kent.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, man. Like, it may take a lot for you to wake up to your power, but it's in there. Everybody's got one.
Yeah.
And we all need that, even if it's just that freaking millimeter, right? And from the quote, just that little bit that we need. We all need that, because if we all do that little bit, I can't even fathom how many leaders, icons, how many people would come. Just like the change would be tremendous. Like, I think of Tony Robbins, right? One of the freaking best life coaches, I guess you'd call him, or whatever. Just awesome dude, so many great things to say. But like, his journey began because of one dude seeing him in class where he saw a talent in someone, and like Tony Robbins was just BSing with some kids in class, and he like pulled him aside and was like, hey man, like, I see something in you. You don't even see it yet. This is what I want you to do. And gave him this thing to go do this I think it was like a speech competition or something, right?
Yep.
And basically just saw it in him, was just like, I see this in you, right? And was able to see his superpower before anybody else could. This one dude, right? And then set Tony Robbins on this path where he went and did this competition, won that one, became national champion at whatever he was doing, right? Because he knew this talent. But it's just being able, like, one person was able to see in someone else that superpower. Yep. And look at how many lives have been changed because this dude was like, listen, man, I see you and your power.
Yep. And
we're just talking one dude. Like, how many people go to his events and have their worlds rocked? And how many leaders has this dude met with just because of one freaking dude? And that's the point, is it may seem like just such a tiny little fraction, but you never know what that's going to do.
No. And to prove a point, and I didn't want to say this, but it really drives this thing home. And I don't want to sound arrogant or too passionate. I get accused of that because of how intense I am. But it has zero to do with arrogance, but just blind belief, and I think shit matters. And when I talk about things, people are like, that guy needs to calm down. Like, he is high on his own supply. And maybe I did take a line of my own shit. Who cares? It's mine. Point being, though, I have 4 alarms for this morning.
Oh, wow.
Why? I slept maybe an hour and 15 minutes last night.
Holy crap.
Okay? And I've, objectively, this is probably one of the most awake states I have felt in most of our, however many podcasts we've had thus far. Point being is I was up last night exploring a lot of spiritual thoughts and different things, quote unquote, and I was so excited setting these 4 alarms. And you'd think if you're excited, you wouldn't need to set 4. That means you're going to have a hard time waking up. I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking human. But when I was setting these, I felt like sickly tired, Mm-hmm. I took care of my daughter all day, and she has my genes, which means she's fucking exhausting. And she's intense, and that's my fault. But going to bed, I was just laughing to myself, being like, what a fucking gift to be so exhausted right now and set 4 alarms to, I hope to God I wake up. And I had to set another alarm on the other side of my room that I set every morning, so it forces me to get up. Because I get up, it doesn't matter what time, but at an ungodly hour, no one else is awake, to work on the work that is in my soul.
Yeah.
So I had 5 alarms this morning to get up. And I was laughing to myself because I'm like, what a gift to be so exhausted. To know that I'm going to get up on a Sunday morning and go explore some thoughts with someone I love to death and would take a bullet for because of the work we believe in, and the meaning behind it. Yeah. And that's when you have tapped into the trail of your soul's vocational energy, is when there is excitement to be exhausted at the labor of what you're doing. Yeah. Another aspect I was going to mention with this, my real awakening of knowing the difference of physically just feeling what it feels to know you're doing your work, like Pressfield talks about, opposed to doing the work that you feel like you have to and you're chained to. The different states of feeling, like the namaste zened out state, opposed to the, like, I just chain smoked 743 cigars in my soul and I'm barely breathing.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
When I first experienced, because it's so hard to talk about it to people, because so many people are trapped, and it sounds like just a circle jerk of just BS pipe dream stuff. And like I said this morning, I'm like, talking about this stuff is like trying to explain to someone like how to kiss a unicorn, like how do you like Karma Sutra with a unicorn, like how do you tap into that? It's like, A, you're not going to find a unicorn, and B, like, how are you going to reproduce with a unicorn? I don't know. It sounds that crazy to people, if you're still trapped.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, I know, and you know infinitely what it feels like to be so bound to a thing that is to the point where you have a coworker come up to you and say, you need to change your attitude because you are making me sad to be alive. That shift, my experiential understanding of actually having the balls, or again, whatever thing you want to discuss reproductively. When I finally got the courage, and I got so exhausted of being so exhausted with settling and choosing to be a victim of my circumstances, when I finally said, I'm ready to tap into something that means something to me, no matter what it takes.
Yeah.
unfortunately, it took me like the whole cancer diagnosis. It made me realize I'm going to die, and maybe pretty soon. I have a daughter. Holy fuck. It is in my soul. It is in my soul. When you are a father and you have paternal instincts, all you want to do is give everything that you have ever valued to this little life. And I'm like, well, my timeline speed up. If I'm not going to be here, I gotta create something for her to tangibly have. And as an artist and as someone that thinks abstractly and wants to express thought, I woke up every single morning at an ungodly hour, doesn't matter what time it is. And for a few hours before work every morning, I woke up and I worked on painting and writing a book for my daughter, the most acid-tripped version of spiritual truths that I could compile for her. And I said, I am not gonna not wake up until this book is done. And it took me a few months to finish this thing. And every morning, every weekend, every day during the week. And it was an honor to wake up and know that if I'm not gonna be here long term, this thing I'm working on, like I get to be Superman in the morning, potentially for my daughter. If I don't get to watch her grow up, my energy's going into this thing that potentially could help breathe life into her if I'm not here. So I have such infinite compassion because I was trapped for 26 years of my life being a victim of everything around me. And then when I finally took life and said, I get to dictate where my energy goes. The quality of the energy of just the state of being, man, the oxygen, every sense that I had when I was tapped into my work, my Pressfield-esque work, it was the first time I felt fully me. And the amount of life that breathed into me since that point of finishing that book, and you've seen the book, and it's such a massive reminder to me that when I know I'm going to get an hour of work, an hour of sleep, and I'm happy about it, it's because I have so many experiences and I have the honor and the privilege of having a platform to express myself. I'm so excited to be exhausted to come out here and just pour out my soul to help encourage someone find their work and press into it, because I believe that for every human being that finds their work, it is inevitable that they will be Einstein, whatever. There is that uniqueness and that power within all of us, if we have the courage to explore it.
Yeah, I know. But it's hard, dude. It's hard finding that courage. I mean, it's not easy, especially when you don't know what you want to do.
Yeah.
You just want to find something that you can deal with every day. I mean, that's the goal. The goal isn't to thrive.
Survive.
It's survive. And I think that's the difference, man. We want to learn how to thrive. And it's such a difficult road, especially with our culture, because it's just, if you hate something, go back to school and figure out until you find something you like. I mean, that's more the mentality.
Yeah.
It's not so much of a journey here. It's a journey of, I'm going to try this path, this path, this path, this path, this path, until something externally comes and makes me feel good internally. And instead of, figure out what's up here, and then it'll radiate that way. And it's just not a common practice, where I feel like that's why it's important to talk about it this way, is to realize that, your job is going to be this mirror and show you the ugly side of what's going on inside, and don't be scared to figure that out, because it's not just going to come by finding something. You may find a job that you enjoy. I mean, you look at a lot of the, I was reading about I think it was Ariana Grande. She was talking about how depressed she was and sent a message to Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey responded, right? But the fact is you have someone that people would kill for to do this beautiful woman doing the art that she loves, having a talent that's just crazy good, right? But it's like Groundhog Day, man. You're going out and you're doing the same thing all the time, to the point where you may get depressed because you're like, this isn't the answer.
Yeah.
The thing that we want to just idolize, oh God, life would be so great if I just had millions of dollars. I got to go on stage and everyone worship me. No, it's not the answer either, right? So it's humbling to realize when you see something like her response is yeah, she's depressed. I'm sure she's depressed. I mean, you're at the pinnacle and you're not being satisfied. What would be more depressing than that, right? But so that's the deal. It's just because it's reflective. It's showing on what's in here. If it's not good in here, nothing out there is going to satisfy. And that's the call to figure that out, but it takes a lot of courage to do that.
Massive.
And just to realize that, like Pressfield talks about, it will destroy you if you don't. And so I wanted to end this one by talking about our work and what we're doing, because it's something where we both feel passionate about, getting to sit here and talk on podcasts every day to whoever freaking listens to it, that we get to tap into our thing, and like I said earlier, a big part of mine has been writing and doing that, and it's funny how it all kind of comes together, and getting to talk about stuff that we talk about is a lot of what I write about, which is great. And part of our work here is to talk about these topics, right? So me and you just kind of came together and said, hey, let's try a podcast, and have these conversations, not as two gurus that are just telling you what to do, or to life coaches, or to, self-help, I guess, knowledge droppers. Like, we're not trying to do that. Hopefully when someone listens to a podcast, they connect to some of the stuff we're talking about. And all that we want to do is just stir that pot of truth in your soul to remind, like, okay, why is this resonating? And just to take that moment and reflect on that, because that to me is everything. And I think a big part of what we're doing here is just to realize we don't need to teach anybody anything. The goal is to awaken themselves up to the fact that, like, if you can get introspective, like, you can realize how much there is to learn just if you can be still and look at what's going on inside you. And work is important because it shows you that, right? Where and I think our work here is to encourage people to do that, where they can look in themselves and what they're doing and ask all these questions. Because it's like, when I talked to my dad about it, the first podcast, he was just like, I think you guys just have like a barrage of questions with no answers. Well, it's like, well, we may not really have a lot of answers, but the point being is, like, we want to focus on these questions that are really important, because I don't really want to be the one giving that person the answer. I think it's for them to, that's the empowering part, is when you have this question hit you in the head and you're like, dude, I don't really know what's going on with that. And then you wrestle with it and you figure it out. That's where the stuff comes from. If I was just to tell you, what you need to do and how to do it, it's kind of blah, right? You want that aha to come, like, oh, I get it, right?
This is so important, man. You're still making my mind shiver after the mindgasm you gave me. With the way you articulated this last week when we were having a talk about this. What the reason why your father had this kind of like lost, confused perspective of like, where's the tangible, like, ABCs of what you're selling? Like, where is the infomercial? Like, what is the tangible answers to the questions? And ironically, there couldn't have been a better response from someone who observed what we're trying to create.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to create is simply an igniting of courage for you to do the only thing that you're responsible to do, and we will never be responsible to do, which is guide your ship.
Yeah.
I am not going to come on board. I have a ship that's barely staying afloat inside my own soul, and I'm still trying to figure this out every day.
Yeah.
What's so beautiful about what Ryan articulated to me is it's the most empowering thing to offer unconditional love that is not a commodity. It is not a self-help guru weekend that we are inviting you to on the weekends during our conversations, metaphorically. We are simply two human beings working on our work, working to express and find ourselves. And the greatest gift any guru, any spiritual teacher could ever give to anyone is not, here is what I did. Hop on my back in a Hunchback of Notre Dame way, and I will carry you across the finish line.
Yeah.
Because that's what the commercialized American approach to spirituality is, and why Eastern religions and cultures have it so infinitely more figured out, is because they have the capacity to get quiet and go within to find truth. And we look at spiritual growth as a commodity to attain. And there is a different brand of it. I need to wear that Nike. I need to wear that Reebok. I need to wear that Adidas of spirituality. And the danger, and this is what you need to expand on and not have me go off on random tangents, the danger of aligning with a specific brand of thinking, what that can do to a mind, and crippling it from doing the only thing that will help you bridge that gap spiritually is to wean off the tit of a specific form of spiritual thought.
Yeah.
It is a crutch. And the goal with spiritual growth is to not need a crutch, but to coexist with all other beings and have an infinite amount of acceptance and respect for where everyone else is on their subjective path.
Yeah, it's well said, dude. And I think a big part of, if you look at whatever thing you're attached to or wherever you're getting your, your spiritual wisdom, look at the money coming into it. Look at the people who benefit off what you do. And if there's someone charging you $2,000 for a weekend, maybe it's not the right path, Maybe it's someone taking advantage of a truth they've discovered. I think the most pure thing is giving something wholeheartedly and not expecting anything back. And that's the part of what we're trying to do here. It's how do we do that in a way that's keeping it pure? And like what we talked about is, we do this podcast. We talk about stuff openly, not expecting to gain anything. There won't ever be an ad on here. There won't be anything for us trying to gain anything. And whether it's, like we said, 5 people or 5 million people, it's not something where it's like, oh man, Vitamin Water is going to give me $1 million if I put their ad on there beforehand. Like, no, I don't want to do that, because what you've just done is sold it out.
100%.
Because there's an agenda behind it now. There's money I'm making from this. And when it comes to spiritual talk, it's just like, no, I think it has to be more than that. It has to be done in a place of this unconditional loving state. And if you taint that in any way, even if your intentions are whatever, it robs it. And that's how you go down that path. And there's so many different teachers that will be like, it's like you have to charge something for it because it helps you care about it, right? It's the idea of like, I'll go spend $5,000 to go to a Tony Robbins retreat for a weekend because then I'm really going to care about it. Well, it's like, well, okay, yeah, I get the concept of that, but it also makes it where like, can you really trust what's going on there? Because they're making a crap load of money if they have 30,000 people at $5,000 a pop, right? I mean, that's the problem with it. So I think with us, it's more the opposite. We started with a podcast to give it in a way where like we're just talking between two dudes. We don't really think that we have all the answers for people, but all we want to do is just help encourage conversations and reflection and all these things that are really important to helping people grow. And I don't want to capitalize from that. All I want to do is encourage it, because I realize the truth is how much we need that, how much we need what we're talking about right now. We need people to tap into their superpowers, right? That's what we need. And so the only way to do that is to give something, and to give it in a way that people can look at and be like, okay, these dudes aren't really gaining anything from it. In fact, it costs them money to do this. Like, it's not free. We have to pay for stuff, right? And so that's part of it. This is part of what we want to do. And the next phase of what we want to do is like, we're talking about creating a brand, and this was more your idea than anything.
It's ours.
Yes, but ours. Yes. So we're going to start making clothing and I think it's a beautiful way of doing this, where we basically give this material thing, like we'll give it away at first just to get it out there, and this this will be something that accomplishes a few different things. One is, if we start selling these items, making a brand, right? It's to create a brand that means something, that communicates something to someone else besides just do it, or besides look at how much money I have, or besides whatever. It communicates something of, I'm a person who's trying to grow and seek truth, and I'm working on me, right? That's what we want this to communicate. And we also want to do another thing where you could take something, buy it, realize that there's no profit going towards us, that it goes to help people, right? So we can do something like what we talked about, is taking, a few different foundations who get the profits from whatever we give, right? So you buy something that you believe in, and then not only do you get to wear that and communicate that, you also get to look at and be like, hey, my material money that I use to make it goes to be a material blessing towards somebody. We're in a material world, that's where we're at. So look at it where like you buy an item and it goes to somebody to help end some sort of human suffering in whatever way, and you get to be a part of picking that, whatever it is. We'll have a selection where you could do that, because that's what we talked about, which would be really cool. And when you wear that or you're in it, you realize that I'm wearing something that helped somebody, but also communicate something to someone too that actually has some substance to it. And I think that's something that's super powerful, because so much of what we wear now is the opposite of that. We wear stuff that just is like, look how much money I made, man. This Nike coat cost me $150, right? Mm-hmm. Must be doing okay, whatever it is. And I just think it's such a unique approach to something we really don't see in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, we got like Tom shoes or something, but like this is something where I think just that brand of when you see like a Fed Up, and you can really elaborate on this more, where you see that, what that means to you, and then if it starts a conversation when someone else wears it, what you can say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. For me, growing up, no, I mean, I'm not gonna have a victim-y pity party, you know, because when you grow up in your environment, what it is, you don't know any different. So, I don't want to be a victim. But for me, I believed Michael Jordan could fly. I thought he was a supernatural alien that blessed us with his presence and pretended that gravity affected him most of the time. And there was glimmers of, it's like, oh, I guess I'll just jump from the free throw line and dunk it just to make it look like I'm kind of human. But I could jump from the half court if I wanted to. And what Nike did to me when I was a kid, and that it planted the seed of that, oh my God, like there are superheroes. There are these ethereal, supernatural beings in the world. And what I tied to that power was a little Greek swoosh of Nike. And I remember that I grew up around kids that were wealthy because my parents worked in the Christian school system. We clearly didn't have the finances they did. I saw these kids wearing these Nikes. I'm like, I go to school with like human beings that are going to grow up and become supernatural creatures because they're wearing these Nikes. I believed it, man. I believed it. I believed they could fly. So the power of branding and symbolizing and tying an idea of the just do it, that it's so infinitely influential. And the commercialism of America has capitalized on that sole desire to be connected to something that matters, that competitive heart we have to align with a specific brand or a specific athlete. We so desperately want to be connected to something that's bigger than what we are. But the irony being is you'll never be bigger than what you are right now, today.
Yeah.
And Fed Up and what we're trying to create is the most underdog human brand of, there is no supernatural human beings. There's just unique human beings who have explored their potential more than others. And I want to so thoroughly give my soul to something that can help create an idea in that Batman-esque way, where he's having a conversation and he's like, I need to stand for something. I need to mean something. That Batman symbol is, it's not even like a tangible thing. It's an idea that can overcome the darkness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, love that idea. And
the only way to do that is to enter into that market and not be a monk and run away. It's to say, if I want to create change, I have to be in the environment where the change needs to be. Yeah. And where the industry of clothing and branding is the most elitist, nonverbal way of saying, I'm more gooder than you today because of the combination of colors and textures that are on here and the logo that says like Gucci Gang, Versace, whatever, you know? Yeah. It's just, you're nonverbally screaming to people, I'm winning.
Yeah.
And when I see the idea of a Fed Up or branding with a Fed Up is, I want to feel an overflowing waterfall of, there's an incredibly average human being who's doing the best they can today. It's fucking awesome. And they're exploring what it means to give energy and finances to something bigger than themselves and do the responsible thing by thinking less of themselves and thinking more about how we are all here, we're all a family, we're all connected. And until you get fed up with the need to be bigger than you are and better than someone else, you're never going to find peace. So the only way to find peace is to financially and emotionally invest in yourself every day, cultivate the vocation within yourself, and move forward. So, and the only way I can, and this is going to be some crazy hippie shit I'm about to do. Ooh. This came to me last night when I should have been sleeping. I'm going to do something that is so thoroughly odd.
I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, be nervous. What I'm doing with you is, I feel it is a marriage to some degree. Like, I have expressed to you, in a very non-Portland-esque way. Like, I'm not saying like very heterosexual man, but saying my heart and your heart, our vocation of energy and belief in what matters, has aligned, right?
Yeah.
And this is your, run away from the marriage ceremony moment. But what's so funny, dude, is not to get off on a tangent, but my grandpa was the most important human being to me growing up. He was the human being that planted the seed, the only seed in my heart that I believed I was loved by someone. And love is the only seed of the only crop worth yielding in any of our souls and lives. And humans are literally just a flower. We are seeds getting planted in other humans and pollinating, and we die, and that flower continues to blossom, and we're all different colors, textures of this varietal called human. And there is a lot of disease and chemicals in our crops as human beings, and I think we can eradicate it. I think we can erase it, but it takes a supernatural form of energy to erase all that. What's the Santos, like all the chemical? Yeah,
Monsanto.
Yeah, Monsanto. Like, that's what commercialism is, and what we're doing is trying to be the opposite of that, the anti-Monsanto. So, I don't really give a shit about material stuff, and ironically, I couldn't care less about brands or material things.
Sure.
But the physical, one of the physical thing of my grandpa that I have that is so brutally important to me is he has his wedding ring. That he was actually the most humble, combine working field man, World War II vet, simple dude. And the dude had the most like blinged out gangster wedding ring I've ever seen in my life, and he had huge ass hands. Massive dude. I literally thought he was John Wayne when I was growing up, and I think he was secretly, and because we watched John Wayne movies growing up all the time, and I was always sitting next to him, and I'm like, this is like your documentary, isn't it? Like all the John Wayne movies, because I just felt his like calm, like security of his love. But I always looked at his ring, and I got his wedding ring. And there's something always, the energy of it was always very special to me, and I didn't know what it was, and just the irony of it being so blinged out for such a simple blue collar Midwest dude, farmer. And it literally hit me yesterday when I was looking at it. I'm like, holy fuck. And you and I haven't fully talked about like sacred geometry and the math of the universe and shit.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at this ring, and geometrically, it is like the flower of life, like the seed of life. And I'm going to tell you more off camera after we finish, because I'm trying to wrap this shit up. But this is going to blow your mind, my friend. And I saw it, and it clicked. I'm like, the pattern of those diamonds in the sequence of 7 they are, like, this is a very heavy, like, as far back as religions go, Eastern, Greek, everything, this sequence of this pattern is like the seed of life and creation. Okay?
Yeah.
So my grandfather planted the seed of love in my heart. And this is a symbol of that, and I saw that. And I am wanting to, in real time, in a non reality TV way, but to capitalize that, like, I'm wanting to give this to you as a gift, and I want you to have it. And I want you to I want you to know that my level of fearlessness and belief in you, and in a very, whoever the fuck the guy was that talked to Tony Robbins, who said he believed in Tony Robbins. Like, I've said this to you off camera many times, like, your like big reason why I'm here and why I'm doing this is because of my infinite blind belief in who you are, and my Robin to your Batman, and my just pumped energy to just know that there's a dude that I look up to, that I'm just like, dude, whatever you want to do, man, like, let's go fight the bad guys, like I'm in. And you're always like, namaste, bro, just chill out. But I mean that sincerely, and this is like a very tangible symbol of material things don't matter. It's what emotion you attach to it. And there's not a more emotionally attached thing that I have that ironically is also the pattern and the seed of life of birthing that. And you'll study sacred geometry and it's going to continue to blow your mind. And I believe that. I believe there is a very intentional coincidence, I think, not energy in this that I'm wanting to extend to you. And I want you to have it. And I want you to put it somewhere where you know that your work that you're doing, that you need to be doing, if my reason for living is to just be here and just be your hype man to get you to write the things you need to write, because that's how much I believe. Because I've been the receiver of the gift of the things that you have thought and expressed with words, and it has changed my life many times. And the fact that I've been witness to that, and you're selfishly not sharing that with the world more, like, I'm here as an advocate for the rest of the world to say, do your work.
Yeah.
Do your work.
Yeah.
And I want this to be a reminder of, like, everything that you and I do together, like this marriage of bros. I believe in it infinitely, and I believe there is not a cap to the beauty that can come out of the energy we're putting in here, and that's why I'm pumped to set 4 alarms and get an hour of sleep last night, and ironically see this yesterday and being like,
crazy, man, I can't believe
so
it.
anyways, will you take this ring?
All right, let me check this thing out. Dang, dude. Well, I feel like to even accept this thing is like a family heirloom. Talk about material.
But that's the thing, man. That's the beauty of family. Is blood means nothing to me, and you're closer to me than my family has ever been to me, because you know the real me and you value that. So what else is family other than those other beings that know you and love and support you on your path?
No, I get you, dude, and I really appreciate it. That's awesome. Just to have that symbol of that is pretty powerful and legit. So I don't take it lightly, and it's something that I will accept and hold on to.
With no prenup. Yeah.
But no, I do agree with you, man. It's cool to get to do this thing with you, and it's like, you call me the Batman to your Robin, but I don't look at it that way.
That's what Batman would say.
Yeah, but it's something that we get to do, and it's something that it's something where it is our work, and it's hard though, man, because like you encourage me a lot where it comes to like writing and stuff, because the hardest part for me is like the self-doubt and the resistance that creeps in, and it's so hard to get through. And
Yeah.
there's a part where like I really hate it, but there's also a part I appreciate about it, because
Yeah.
without the resistance is that struggle, that building of the muscles to get
Yep.
through. So I mean, yeah, I mean, for you to have the faith that you have in me is something awesome. So not to get too broy at the end of this episode, but I do
Yeah.
think it is important where it's like you see that, we both have a belief in each other, in what we're doing, and it's something that's really powerful, and I don't think a lot of people have that.
Well, that's what I'm wanting to express, and that's why I specifically didn't want to do it after we turned the cameras off. I wanted to show what it means to be fully human, and what it means to especially be like heterosexual, male to male, like
Yeah.
expressing yourself fully,
Yeah.
fearlessly, with potentially an audience, and being like, this is what it means.
Yeah.
I will not let a cultural expectation and parameters of what I'm supposed to be as a man and a blue collar construction worker, I will not let that dictate what I know myself to be.
Sure. Yeah.
And the proof is in the pudding. Unless you express that fully without just the convenience of no one else watching, like, it's not truly you. You know?
True. Yeah. No, but dude, I think it's awesome that you could be that free to do something like that, because I can imagine. I know how much your grandfather means to you, and to even think about giving me something like that is a really big deal. So I think it's a testament to you, not just saying what you say,
Yeah.
but living it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have the most valuable thing of my grandfather, which is the moments that are in my heart.
That's right.
Everything else, I have a couple other memorabilia-y things, but it does. They're lifeless.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think that's super important, especially with how material we are. We hold on to those things. Like, this is one of the most precious things to me. You know, there's a fire in my house. I'm running and grabbing this ring and I'm getting out, right? Where
Yeah.
it's something that shows, yeah, you practice what you preach,
Yeah.
right? And the stuff we preach is not, it's not easy.
It's not practiced much.
Yeah, that's right. But no, dude, and I think it's really awesome to be on this journey together and to see where it goes. You
Yeah.
know, my expectations, I try to surrender them all the time.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, this is part of doing the work that we need to do. So I think that, you know, for anybody who listens to what we say in this, that I think that is probably the thing that differentiates us from other people, is that we practice what we say. We're real, we're vulnerable, we are open, and I think that's something that really speaks.
Yeah.
And I think it speaks in a way that some people really admire and other people just don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
And it makes them uncomfortable. They want something more concrete. When they see it like this, it's just it's more of an eye-opening thing. So I think that's something that is really important, because to have people lead with this kind of openness and open heartness is something that is really counterculture, and something that is, I think, is really going to show people what we're about. You know what I mean? So, anywho, dude, well, really appreciate the gift. That's amazing.
Absolutely, man.
So, anything else before we wrap this sucker up?
Oh man, I think just slingshotting everything you and I have built up conversationally up until this point, and just fearlessly going into territories you and I are both completely unaware of how to dance within those boundaries, in terms of entering into like a commercialized, making our ideas tangible through a brand. And I just encourage people to ask themselves if they're attached to any spiritual path that they're having to pay for, and the spiritual creator of the path that's being offered is needing a financial investment from you. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
There's something wrong. And the only thing, and you can fact check the hell out of anything we do moving forward, and we will so thoroughly invite it, that any tangible financial investment that will be entering this, we will merely be a conduit of that energy and those finances to do something positive with it.
That's right.
And that is the saddest part of spiritualization, is that it has become monetized.
Yeah.
And you can't monetize a soul. And there's a lot of false sense of security within that. And I just encourage people to financially and emotionally invest in truth, and have the courage to ask themselves if the truths they think are true are really true. And if they're having to pay for them.
Yeah. Just pass the smell test.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you, Jordan. That was, dude, I can't even fathom the gift that you gave, but I'll have to
Deal with
process
it.
that.
You're fine.
But anywho, so appreciate everyone that tuned in. We'll be back next week with something interesting. So we again appreciate all the support, and always reach out. Don't hesitate to ask questions, and yeah, thanks everyone.